All right. Welcome back again, everybody. Hopefully you had a nice little break. And we'll be stepping up to the easel in just a second. But yeah, I thought I could use those paintings that I'm working on. Oh, I just moved the camera in the way of the red one back there. But you can see one's very warm, the reddish one to the farthest over here. And then much cooler, even though it's dealing with a lot of, either a setting sun or a rising sun, whatever you imagine that to be. Lots of fog, atmosphere. This one has in the middle has a higher value contrast, right? Because of these upright cypress trees are really quite dark, and they kind of help us read as we're falling back into space, both by their size and by how they get softer and cooler and more affected by the atmosphere as they recede back. And then the red one is there. Again, sorry about the tripod being in the way. I could move it. Very warm. And as of yet, the values are much closer together. And I'm not sure. I may come in and cool off that and add a lot more fog and stuff, or I may just come in and add grasses into the foreground to add to, in more detail to push those soft edges even further back. Because right now everything's very soft edged. And that's just kind of how I've been approaching it. I've been painting that with a big house painting brush so far. And it's about third layer of translucent colors. And then in the sky, I'm just beginning to add more opaque light color over the top. Adding the white always is going to add more opacity to the paint. And then, like I said, in the foreground, I may add some more density in some grasses, just add some so that the bottom part wants to come even a little closer to us. But I want it to be quite dreamy and I don't know, just feel like fog in the atmosphere. I'm going to do something sort of similar to the two paintings that are going to be on the easel. Sorry, I zoomed. Oh, I've got the camera moved. Got the two blue ones back there, the Payne's gray and white. And then I went ahead and threw that value study that I did in front of it, so you can really see warm underpainting versus a cool underpainting. And I think they both have their merits. What I'm going to do with these is I'm going to let's figure out where the distance, there we go. It's a good distance. I'm going to paint one of them in the red family key and one in the blue family key. And we're going to see what that does. They're both going to have the sun still peeking through behind them, just stabilizing the tripod. The legs were getting a little close, and I'll make sure I don't knock it over. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is paint this one with red, and it's going to be they're both going to be monochromatic paintings to start with, and then I'll come in and add more color. You guys have seen me using the earth red, the Indian yellow, and the French ultramarine. I'm not going to use those colors so much today because I want to experiment with other color families. And I apologize. I just pulled my paint thing out of the freezer. So these colors are really still a little bit frozen. So hopefully we will, with a little bit of paint thinner, be able to reactivate them. I'm just going to dip into my red. I think this one's going to be the red one. I don't know why.
So Michael, is that quinacridone or
quinacridone red? Yeah, so it's my more purpley red. And on the other one, let's dip into, well, get a brush that's a little better. I'm going to dip into kind of a purpley blue. It's ultramarine, but it seems like it's been affected a little bit. Maybe I can pull more of this. Oh, it's still frozen. I'm mixing that front. I'm mixing my two blues. There is some paint thinner mixed in there, some of the Gamsol, just to get them to move, because again, they're so frozen. No, they do thaw out pretty quick out of the freezer. So hopefully, as I'm moving forward, I'll be able to do that. I'm gonna grab my paper towel. I'm gonna wipe them down just a little bit, so those colors will become even more transparent because they'll become thinner. So that is the quickest, easiest way to make a very high, very, very harmonious painting, is by just using one color, right? So very, very harmonious because of the fact that it's just one color. I can come back in like with my reds, and I could add warmer reds if I want. It almost feels orange, even though that's a cadmium red. I think cadmium red light, which is quite opaque, so it has a hard time doing the translucency thing. So I'm keeping it within the red family. But now I've got a warmer red and a cooler red. And you see if I turn off the spotlight, if that makes it, might be too glary. Yeah, a little bit. So you can see that it was all very warm compared to here. Now I go in and I start adding in a warmer red, and all of a sudden the purpley red even feels more purple. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of green.
Is that considered monochromatic still?
Yeah, it's red. You know, you could decide, you know, if it's truly monochromatic, literally using one color. But what I've done is I've chosen a warmer one and a cooler one. And so I'm just kind of going to build them up as we see. So it could be fully monochromatic, and I could literally just take that quinacridone red and add white. So let's do that to the blue one. Let's just add a little bit of white to it, which is going to change the opacity. I'm still keeping it in the blue family. All I've done is add white to that blue. Right? I was thinking, let's see what happens if I add just a touch of yellow. So now it's going to be colors that are side by side on the color wheel, red or blue and green. I'm going to put a very light, I've added white to this green. Kept it almost the same value as that light blue I just put in. I'm having a hard time seeing it. Focus. May have to make a brighter green or cooler blues next to it. So this one's just reds. This one's got a little green to it. Let's see if I can make a brighter green. I can see it here fine, but on the monitor, it's not quite showing up. Still not showing up on there. Why is that? Nope. Huh, interesting. So the camera has a hard time differentiating between colors that are really close in value.
If you squint, you can kind of see it's more yellow.
Interesting. Let's see if I put more of it on there. Cover more of the sky.
What would happen if you moved the camera so the red painting is not in the frame?
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, look at that. All of a sudden the yellow showing up in the other one. It's not super extreme because I kept it pretty cool and light. Let's see what happens if I add. I'm just going to go ahead and add a dash of just almost straight yellow. It appears to be pink on the monitor.
I'm seeing it as yellow.
Oh, are you? Okay, cool. So that's like almost out of the tube yellow. That's really strong and kind of feels toxic in person here.
But Michael, you still consider this monochromatic?
No, so the blue one, it would not be monochromatic anymore because I've gone from blue to green and now over to yellow.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Oh yeah, no, this one's not any longer. So as soon as I add like another color, monochromatic would be like one color family,
Mm-hmm.
light or dark variations on it.
Okay. Thank you.
It's much
Yeah.
more values. Yeah, good question. Yeah, that's crazy looking. I have to wipe it off, but it's yeah. Take a little bit of paint thinner to it.
Oh, it was looking very foggy.
Yeah, it really was. Just getting it back to start, pretty much. There we go, back to the black and white version of it. And let's get our blue on there again. We need another brush. Didn't plan to use the little palette that I have out. It's kind of hard to get clean colors, but there we go. Get back to our blue. And then I'm just going to wipe away to lighten the blue areas. So now it's back to monochromatic. I just got lights and darks of blue.
On my screen, it almost looks yellow.
The part that I just wiped away.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Yeah. And it's surely not. I mean, I don't hate them right now already. Like they're not, you know, fantastic or interesting really or done, but it's kind of cool just to see what happens. That's what's so fun about having these little quick paintings that are not precious to you. And, you know, having the acrylic underpainting that's dry, I can really kind of experiment and play and see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and lighten this sky up even a little more over here too, even though it's got the warm and the cool. I want to have a little more value contrast as well as temperature contrast for right now, at least to get me kind of started. All right, so with that in mind, what I'm thinking I'm going to do is play that up. I'm going to have a red painting family key. So right now, again, monochromatic, monochromatic. And I'm going to take those a little further. And I'm going to have kind of the family is red, warm. The family is blue, cool. But I'm going to allow myself to use other colors and more paint to express, myself a little more in them. If this is as far as you get with your homework, that's totally fine. And you can put any colors. You got to pick yellow, green, brown, whatever color. Where I'm just kind of wanting to say, what is the color key? So now I can kind of decide, like, okay, what would I like to do up here? I'm going to bring in a little bit of cool red into the sky to create kind of a feeling of the part of the sky that's a little bit more, well, I've got streaks of light going through. I'm going to do the inverse of that with kind of a cooler red. I'm adding a little bit of white to it, to my cool red, and it should come off as kind of a cool purple in comparison with that warm color. Not sure if that's showing up. I might have to bring some of these colors down into the ground a little bit and see what happens too. So just kind of bringing out those clouds back there. I'm going to bring some of that color down into those far back trees as well. I'm going to add a touch of blue just to darken it, but I'm going to keep it in the red. So I'm mixing, sorry about the palette, my ultramarine and my quinacridone. So I'm taking it out of just a monochromatic painting. And now I'm going to try to keep it in the red family, but adding other colors to it for a little bit of interest and to start to differentiate. So I'm going to cool these trees and knock them back a little more.
So to keep it in the same family, could you have a range from red violet to red orange then?
Yeah, and then also kind of what's your dominant color. So I'm not afraid to, if I wanted to, I could have some yellows and greens in there, but I still want the painting. If you just ask somebody, what's the main color? Right? We looked at a bunch of those paintings that had a lot of colors in them. But what was the main color that you saw? So that just kind of added a little purple, might darken it just a touch. So I just kind of blued those down a little bit so they feel still like they're in atmosphere and aren't falling back into there a little bit. Maybe I'll bring a little bit of that color like it's peeking through some of these trees. And I'm going to take my warm red and I'm going to lighten it up, and I'm going to start bringing in some of the grasses as well. And if you guys would prefer, I could try to set up my palette up here so we can just do one of these paintings at a time. Would that be better probably? Or do you like seeing both of them in contrast to each other at the same time? Would you rather see me mixing colors?
I think I'd like to see just one at a time.
Okay.
Kind of like both.
If you're painting on both, I'd want to see both if you're doing them at the same time like you did earlier.
Yeah.
And if you're just going to focus on the one at a time, then zoom in on that one while you're finishing it.
But both of them together are very interesting.
Okay, and so I'll just keep explaining kind of what I'm doing with my colors. It's not really a color mixing class as much anyway, so I'm just kind of gonna come in and warm up my grasses a little bit, especially kind of back here, but I also want to keep them kind of grayed down so that I'm just testing to see, can I get away with that? Yeah, maybe. Maybe it needs to be a little. And my paints are still being a little bit funny. Just again, they're still a little frozen.
That looks like kind of a light red orange.
Yep, exactly. Kind of it's actually quite gray too, but it's definitely a more orangey. And I'm just seeing if that creates a little more separation.
Michael, did you gray it, or is it just grayed because of the white being cool?
And the little bit of blue that's kind of
Okay.
there from the trees, just a touch.
Did I hear you, Michael, did I hear you say that you might venture off your normal palette and use other colors? So if you did do that, will you let us know?
Well, yeah, it's the same colors that I put out on my palette, the 2 reds, 2 yellows, 2 blues. But what I'm saying is I didn't do like a earth red underpainting. This time I just did a red underpainting and a blue underpainting. And just to kind of see, you know, what does that do for this painting? I'm trying.
Did you add any green into that grassy area?
No, it's the little bit of blue. Maybe it kind of went a little bit green, but no, on my palette, it's very pink. If I put it up against here, maybe you can see the tip of that brush, quite pink. Let's just put a little dash on there, see if it shows up. So that's the color of those grasses. Over here against the red, they appear kind of greenish. Over here against the blue, it's still very pink.
Hello.
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 All right, I'm trying to decide what color should my grasses come forward. Should they get a little bit greener? Should I let them get a little greener as they come forward? See what that does. Very experimental. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and invite a little bit of green in as the colors kind of come forward.
Oregon Society of Oregon Artists.
That's funny. Oregon OSA is calling me right now. Get back to them.
And your green there is a mix of what?
It is truthfully the kind of leftover colors from this weekend, so it'd be a mix of probably all the colors. On my palette, you can see some various browns and grays that were kind of when I cleaned my palette each time. But those are the same colors that I normally use, just kind of mixed up. I'm mixing it with quite a bit of red because I don't want the transition to go, you know, all of a sudden too big. So it's going to be a very reddish green, at least as it's transitioning and coming forward.
I'm guessing that if you painted in there even with a gray, it would read green because of the surrounding red, right?
Yeah, and it really is gray. I mean, if you see it on my palette, it's this color right here.
Oh, yeah.
So there is green above it, you can see. So it's actually very, very much gray. So I just mixed my red and my green together and then added a little white because I want it to still. I'm going to let little bits of the red that's there kind of show through in between. And then it's probably because, you know, I just I just glazed it. I'm sure it's also picking up some of those reds that were there, which is fine because it's going to add to the harmony, right? It's going to keep it in the family. I'm going to let this green get a little greener as it comes forward, a little more. I'm letting that green chroma be a little purer as it starts to come closer to us, because there's less of that warm red atmosphere, is my theory. Whether or not I get away with it, we'll have to wait and see. Right? I'm constantly, how much can the painting bear? How much can I get away with? Is it still a happy family? And I want to it's hard to test it when it's just a little bit of color, a little bit of greenish color next to a bunch of reds. So I'll have to give it a fair shake, right? I have to kind of let it cover enough. All right, I'm gonna let my green get a little denser again, a little more high green chroma, a little pure, a little more. So hopefully, does it feel like the greens are getting greener as they're coming towards us at the bottom of the scene a little bit there?
A little
Yeah.
bit.
And if I show you, it's still very gray. I'm using this, not this green. That green is dried up and just sitting on there. That's the green, the one right next to the purple that I'm using.
Really pretty.
Yeah, it's just trying to keep it in harmony. I showed you monochromatic. Now I'm showing you kind of a reddish. I'll let that green get a little greener. I'm going to add a little bit of blue because I want it to get a little cooler as it comes forward and into the shadows. So as I'm mixing it, it just got bluer, greener, and I'm going to go ahead and add a touch of my quinacridone just to mute it down a little bit. So when I add the red to the green, of course, it becomes grayish. I'm just kind of getting these into the shadows. Yeah, I like that green next to that kind of purpley red is really got kind of a nice little give and take to it. And it still feels like there's harmony in here, even though I've added literally the opposite color, right? The opposite of red is green, red, being the primary, and then yellow and blue mixed to make green. So crossed each other on the color wheel. But because I've added so much red, we would barely consider that color to be green on there, right? Again, compared to the green, it's above the bright pure green. So it's a very reddish green. Darken it one more time. Add again a little tiny bit more blue. I'm going to let this get a little cooler so that in the shadows, I've got, where the red light and the red atmosphere isn't getting to as strongly. I'm going to have some cooler grasses in there. And that's where it's going to get a little more green, and the green is going to be a little pure. So it's not being affected by the same light source as strong. Does that make sense, everybody? What I'm talking about there, hopefully. Just letting my brush strokes stay nice and loose and kind of broken up. I'm letting the reds show through and I'm letting them mix, having a good time, keeping everything. I'm trying to imagine, like, if I was trying to capture this actual light, an event happening kind of in person. I'm just trying to give you the, if I can say it, the impression of it, and letting the optical mix happen where I'm leaving the colors broken up. You can see the greens right next to the color that I just never even touched, the reds, and they kind of mix together and create these kind of nice other color, second color almost. Our eyes do the mixing for us, optical mixing. Not sure what color I should bring into those trees. What color should they be? I'm gonna go towards green. I'm adding more of the lighter blue. I'm thinking about that Mark Hansen painting that I had on Photoshop, the cooler one. I'm not sure that's a great idea. Let's see what happens if I do kind of an aquamarine. Might be too much. Might be too big of a jump of a color. Let's see. I'm gonna bring some of those cool, bright greens into this tree that's kind of closest to us.
Maybe even some fall reds.
Yeah, I'm wondering that, but I'm thinking what's kind of gonna relate to the reds without getting lost. So I could think that, like, okay, if I did fall, let's wipe that down a little bit maybe.
That's cool. It really emphasizes that that tree is in the shadow behind the backlit tree.
Right, so let's think if it was fall colors. What color are you thinking for fall colors?
Well, you've got that orangey red that's backlighting the tree right behind the foreground tree. Maybe a little brighter version of that. I don't know.
So if I want it to be kind of like we just said, in the shadow a little bit.
How about green with your other cadmium red?
So
That,
that's actually what I just did. So that color that I just had on there, that bluey aquamarine, I just mixed some of the red in, and that's going to be my kind of in the shadow color, because that tree's not picking up too much light on this side. So I'm letting some of those purples show, and then on the edges where it's going to be picking up more light, maybe I will let.
And then what about between the trunks?
Yeah, I'll have to bring.
More, well, not green, but that backlit orange again to emphasize
The light sneaking through there.
lights sneaking through. Or is that just gimmicky?
I like that. That'll be fun. Bring little hints of this color in. So a lot of times I'll take color, and kind of mix it in. So there's, again, the harmony. So this is the same color that was in the shadow of this tree. I'm just going to kind of use it to kind of splash around.
I'm so impressed with your restraint.
Thank you. It could be a backhanded compliment. I don't know what you mean. Now I'm going to add a little more of my red. I'm adding a little more red. So now it's going to be a very dark kind of a plum color, adding a little white. So it's going to get kind of purpley as this tree begins to pick up some of the light. And now it's that value is really close to the tree behind it. So I'm gonna have to be kind of careful, or maybe I'll even brighten that tree up a little more. I think I got added a little too much white. So I'm gonna go add a little more red to that. So it's not quite as cool. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and jump to the tree behind it. And it's gonna be a redder tree, a little more translucent. And I'm gonna use some of those reds that are up there. I don't know, we might have to cool down the interior of that tree a little bit here in just a minute. Take those leaves out a little bit further, so that's a slightly more interesting shape. I said an interesting shape. I don't know what color shape that is. It's not interesting. All right, we'll warm that up with the cad red. Touch of white, which is going to be a little bit scary because it wants to go towards pink. And I gotta slow it down just a second here because I'm not able to get a very bright color because of I didn't clean the brush, but let's use a little bit of that and see. It's getting a bit much. Yeah, that's getting too strong in my opinion, but it's kind of an interesting idea. It's interesting having a warmer tree further back.
Well, sometimes they grow that way.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was just actually during our break looking out the window of my studio, and there's, you know, all the different colored, beautiful trees out there. And kind of interesting to see it. Yeah, and then this becomes the focal point, doesn't it? The creek kind of leads us back there. It can bring some of those nice warm leaves. Kind of down and along the sides of it, and a little hints of it showing.
Maybe a little on the ground.
Yeah, maybe. First, I want to see if I even like what's going on here. And now it feels like such a big departure. Now it's all of a sudden making those other areas feel so, the other red, even though it's a red painting, feel cool. Maybe that's going to work. We'll see. Just experimenting, just having fun, making mistakes so you guys don't have to, unless you want to. Or at least you hopefully don't make the same mistakes. Just seeing if I can get away with it. So very red.
Do you ever reach a point where you think, okay, I have to stop playing or it's going to muddy up? Do you know, and how would you identify that point?
I mean, right now it feels like a sore thumb in this painting. That just, even though the greens felt like they were more in harmony than these bright orangey colors that I'm throwing into it now. And so it's like, okay, do I experiment and see if I go make other color areas brighter and more expressive or more dramatic? What does that do? So that may be the key, is to make this area feel less intense, is to make other areas more intense. If that makes sense?
Yeah.
But right now that sure feels odd.
On the screen, it's getting pretty intense.
What's that?
On the screen, it's getting pretty intense.
It really is, yeah. And it's pretty ugly how I painted it too. So it's ugly on top of ugly. A touch of ugly.
Okay, but remember, you're just demonstrating color principles here.
Yep, just demonstrating, just having fun. Well, instead of, I can always pull it back. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna make that sky behind it brighter. So I'm just mixing up mostly cad red medium and white, which is making kind of a, then touching it with some yellow to kind of get it towards a peachy pink. And let's see.
So you can always put a lady with the purse on the right-hand side of the canvas with a like,
Yeah, bright red umbrella.
yeah, glowing, right, exactly. Actually, there was one painting you posted where you had a lawn chair in the foreground. Was that the white vinyl chair?
Yeah, the Adirondack chairs.
Yes, right. I really liked that. It was just so
Yeah, I just I wanted to
contradict
do
such
something
a
with kind of a perfect day at the Oregon coast, and I just thought the Adirondacks are always so nice when you get to sit on an Adirondack with a glass of wine, or and
And-
enjoy a nice warm enough day.
materials wise, it was such a great contrast to the sea and the rocks and the sky.
So I'm just adding more red to this kind of peachy color, and again, just seeing what happens. So now by adding that kind of really vibrant sky, and the tree doesn't feel so out of place, the bright yellows and whatnot. But I'll still have to kind of play it by ear a little bit. And it kind of lost some of the initial harmony that I liked so much with the greens and the purples. So, but I can always just say, okay, well, notes for a future painting. I really liked those colors together, less so what's going on now. But maybe this could still go somewhere.
If you added more quinacridone in that tree, would that help?
Yeah, possibly. We will find out in a minute here. Maybe. Let's warm up these trees way back here too. as if that warm light's really kind of coming through and affecting other things. Yeah, it's fun to kind of get yourself in a bit of a bind, however you did it, and then see if you can get your way out of it, but not always. And the good news is I can always wipe this off and start again. Probably not during class, but now maybe that's how after class, I just wipe it back off. Yeah, I'm gonna bring more purple back into this tree.
So Michael, I've got a question, two questions, I guess. Did you start off thinking about what value key range you wanted this in? And what value key range would you say you're in?
Right now, it's a pretty full spectrum. Truthfully, the darks are reading lighter on the monitor because of the shine
Mhm.
on them. See if we change the lighting on it a little bit. So because I did it in black and white with all the different values, I was just kind of thinking, oh, it'll be pretty full value. But you can see with the blue, it got to, because of the, I haven't gone through and wiped the white back. It all of a sudden got into the darker values. This one was in the darker values because of the red over the white, but now that I've gone back in and really lit up that sky, it's becoming a bigger, fuller value again. And a lot of times I will have, I like using pretty full value, but I will kind of have more of, like 70% of the painting would be in the low value key or low key. And then a little bit of it would be in the high key, but right now I've got a lot of it in the mid because of all the grasses being lit as I have. So yeah, that's a good question. And that might help me to kind of get my painting back under control, is to do something like that, is to figure out kind of a value parameters and get myself out of some of the trouble I'm in.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for reminding me to think about that. I'm just kind of cooling down on the inside of this tree, away from the sun, and seeing if that helps me get it back a little bit. But maybe having that bright red, or maybe the bright red should only be right here. I don't know. I'm just slowly making it smaller, like coming in and cooling down, darkening. Feel like I need to make a dark in there.
And maybe the reflection will help it tie into.
Right. Yeah, I don't know why I forgot the reflection on that one. Let's get some darks. You're right, though. I totally forgot that reflection. See, it takes everybody to make a micro wick painting. Need everybody's inputs and catching. But I'm forgetting. I'm trying to a little bit bind something. So I'm just going to go ahead and get some darks. I'm just kind of slowly sneaking up on the darks, and I think I just need to go for it and see if that doesn't help. They're staying so warm. Adding almost straight blue into it now. Definitely have a lot of paint on that little tree right now. Let's see. Yeah, I'm wishing I hadn't done this because I did like everything up until I started doing that. But you know, I think it's good for you guys to see. And I think it's fixable. I'm just kind of, I feel like this is one where I'd want to step back, catch my breath, and contemplate it a little more. Which is probably what I'll do. Or at least maybe get to the blue guy for a little bit. Yeah. Any thoughts right now as I kind of ponder? I don't want to say I'm giving up, but I think I need to take a breath from it and see what happens if I come back to it.
If you add a little bit of the green into those orangey leaves, maybe that would help
Let's see.
harmonize it. But I don't know, I feel like I messed you up.
That's all right. Yeah, maybe green is the key. So yeah, okay, good. I'm starting to see that all of a sudden. You're right. Good call. Ooh, that really helped, didn't it? Kind of neutralized it a little bit. And the truth is, I do believe I can just take my paper towel and just kind of wipe along that edge and pull off a lot of that. And maybe what I'll do is even just take my crazy brush here and just kind of soften some of those marks. So it's got a little more of a penumbra effect. Wow, that really got dark. Anyways, I'm gonna sit on this guy for a second. And let's go to the blue guy and see what happens over here. Oh, class is already over. I'm gonna go ahead and quickly, in my imagination, turn this one into a frosty morning. Let's see if I can do that. So I'm just grabbing a little blue, a little white. I'm just going to come across the top of these grasses as if there's kind of a frosty morning. I always see artists who can work on really messy palettes, and I just don't know how they do it. I have to clean my palette every night and reset it up every morning pretty much. And I'm really remembering why I do that. When you pick up little bits of other colors that you're not intending. So it's going to be pretty bluish on the ground and probably even into the trees. And then I will warm up the sky ever so slightly towards pink and see what happens. I'm just curious. You know, maybe we'll end up with 2 duds today. Or maybe I'll just wipe them back off after class. So I'm going to also lower the value key on this, or make it a high value key, even though it's going to be cool, which is kind of the opposite. A lot of times the blue ones will be more on the, ooh, it kind of does look like frost a little bit, or snow or whatever. I'm just going to kind of cheat my way through this one and get it in real quick, and then I will decide if this is a worthwhile endeavor. My trees towards the back are going to actually be a little warmer because they're going to be picking up a little bit of that light. So I'm going to go towards kind of a pinky purple back there with those guys. Again, all very experimental. I'm going to bring a little bit of that pinky purple into the frost back there. Let it get a little cooler towards the bottom of these trees. Nope, did not get cooler. Man. Have to use another brush to mix up some color real quick. Just adding a little blue to it, but it's still not wanting to go blue. We'll just see what that does back there. I'm gonna bring some of that pink across the top of the tree. Kind of, again, the same mistake I just made, but we'll see what happens. All right, very quickly, I'm just going to go to very light pink, kind of warmer, but trying to keep it kind of cool. Back on my horizon, so this is kind of like sunrise on a frosty day is my initial instinct. I'm going to create a transition of kind of a very light yellow, very light yellow, almost white. Yeah, it does kind of feel frosty, even in the trees a little bit there. Kind of fun. Back to those peaks, bring them down into the trees. All right. Big difference in family values. All right, well, I feel as if I spent the last hour showing you a lot of things that I wouldn't maybe do again. And I may well wipe down that red one and start again, or just kind of see what happens. And they're really showing up interestingly on the monitor, not that they're much better, but yeah, I feel like I've learned some stuff. And it's just the top of that tree. That red tree is really hurting my feelings, and that's good. Like, that happens, and don't worry, Michelle, I'd only blame you a little bit. Just kidding, I don't blame you at all. It's always fun to try, and it could have worked amazingly, and it could have really sang, and maybe it still has a chance to do so. But I think that I liked what I had so much with the purples and greens showing up. I think I may wipe it back down and knock that back in again, because I was having a really fun time in experimenting with that, and I thought I almost felt like I was learning a new little color thing. If you cover the top, put your hand up and cover the top of that tree and look into the grasses, they're really quite nice and beautiful. So I think I may key that back in. The blue one I just painted in 10 seconds, as you saw. And I think with a little bit of work and finesse and bringing in some actual sense of detail, and not letting it be so cartoony and clowny looking, I think that one could actually be kind of interesting as well. You're not seeing the colors very well. The bottom white part is actually pink in the sky. So anyways, let's talk a little bit. I'm going to get away from that. Whew, okay. So did you understand at least what I was trying to do there? And what I'm kind of hoping that you'll do, experimenting with monochromatic, or you can, push that a little bit if you'd like to. I would suggest a clean palette without frozen paint, and maybe a little more forethought than I put into that. So, you can look through the different references of colors that artists have used, or anything else. I've got the Mark Hansen pulled aside still, and the Michael Workman, and I like both those color palettes a lot. So maybe I might look to those as I go back in and do those again, because that's the cool thing, right? A little bit of paint thinner, and I'm pretty close back to the beginning. So all I've done is learn a couple hard knock life lessons there. And the good news is we all got to learn together. And let's see if I don't have something to share with you by next week on those. But I'll probably kind of do something similar with the reddish one. The bluish one, I'm not positive what I'll do. All right, so homework, 2 little paintings is all I need from you. And they can be both warms, both cools, both whatever you want. You can do fully monochromatic if you want. And if you want to do monochromatic, you could literally mix a color. Let's say you mix a brown of any sort or whatever. Then you could simply take a tube of black paint and a tube of white paint and just change them with that. Not a way that I paint very often, but that could be a monochromatic painting. You may come up with some really interesting results. You could do like I did with red and black and white, or blue and black and white. Have fun, experiment, don't let them become too dear. And if a couple of us come out with some interesting pieces and we all come away winning from each other, or learning from each other, I think that's great. Next week will be the beginning of the end, our final 2 weeks. And I would like to put together kind of all the different things we've covered, go over everything. just have a quick discussion about that. I'll be looking at your guys' paintings as well, which we didn't get a time to do this week. But nice job. I'll try to get onto Facebook and write on there and pick the scene that you would like to paint for your final 2 weeks. This is for you. This is whatever painting, scene, whatever it is that, you may want to spend a couple weeks doing. If you're more than welcome to use my references, I can add that vineyard one if anybody was interested in it on there. And yeah, and I'm still not positive what I'm going to paint because maybe you guys talked me out of the vineyard one. I was just so excited when I saw it.
Oh, I would love to see that one, Michael.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm kind of excited by the vineyard, and I need to do a bunch of vineyard paintings for one of my galleries. So I will probably do that one. Maybe I'll go through it and figure out what I can do in the areas that are non-logical in it, like the big interesting field and stuff. Anything else, you guys?
Well, it's been very inspiring.
I won't be able to be here next week.
All right. Well, you've got your homework. Start your next big painting when you get time.
And again, will the last one still be mainly focused on tonalism?
I would suggest using what we've learned about tonalism, but I'm not gonna, get too upset, Michelle, if you have a big, colorful, beautiful painting. I want you to paint something that you want to do and enjoy. But yeah, if you can use as many, or even just really focus in on one of the lessons that we've learned, I think that would be, that would be great. But I'm not gonna, except for Deb. Deb, have to do a tonalist.
Well, yeah, I will.
I know.
So Michael, let me make sure I'm clear on the assignment. We do 2 small paintings and you said one of them may be monochromatic if we would like to do a monochromatic.
Truthfully, both of them can be if you'd like.
Or they could both be, whichever. We don't have to do monochromatic. Or by monochromatic, could we mean family of color,
Exactly. So you saw how I started it with a single color wash over it.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's just a quinacridone red, monochromatic painting. And then I added in other reds. And yeah, you can go as far as you really want.
Okay.
But I would just like you guys to experiment with color families. What I guess I would like to see when I look at it is at least about 60 to 70% of it leaning towards color family. And it can be pretty loose. That could be blue, which blue covers, all the way to green, to purple, and into purple if you want. So I'm going to be pretty loose about that. Again, if we look at the, think about that Mark Hansen, it's a very bluish painting, but it's got greens, reds, everything in it. What I guess I want most importantly, and why I introduced all of these ideas, is harmony. How much can the painting bear? And you saw that I pushed it and I lost my harmony. My painting couldn't hold, it couldn't bear what I was putting on there.
So do we have to do the acrylic underpainting?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No,
All
I
right.
just do that so that I can get off to the races.
Okay.
Yeah. And then that was a really quick and cheaty way of showing monochromatic.
Well, yeah, it worked. It worked.
Yeah, and it can be beautiful sometimes. Yeah, and it can be very subtle. It doesn't have to be high chroma. Like I could have wiped that red all the way back so it just barely hinted at on there, right? And maybe that would have been more beautiful and more interesting, or the same with the blue, to just turn to a blue-gray value scale. You have lots and lots of opportunity. The cool thing too is if you do the acrylic and let it dry for a day, you can put it on and wipe it off, put it on and wipe it off. It'll get weird. Eventually it kind of stains the paint a little bit, but that's fine. That gives you something to kind of experiment on and try. And yeah, every week my homework to you guys is barely homework. It's more, I just want you to keep experimenting, keep playing, keep trying new things, keep putting new concepts in there to your paintings. And then in the final 2 weeks, we get to pick a couple of the things we've learned. And again, we'll go over all of them next week. And you guys can pick and choose. And I'm hoping that you guys come away with a painting or two that you are proud of. And make you happy, that you feel like you've learned something in this class. So that's the homework. Be happy.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
You guys are awesome. Thank you. And
Wonderful
sorry
day.
the painting went a little crazy, but you know, live and learn, and that's part of it. I mean, that's experimenting and that's playing, and I learned a lot. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did we.
A great lesson.
Yes.
Thank
Great
you.
lesson. Yes.
Guys, all right. I'll see you in a week.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Michael. Bye-bye.
Bye.